So, who's in with me with that? Let's go. Bigfoot is spotted in many other eastern states, such as Pennsylvania, New York, upstate New York, of course, New Jersey, and Virginia. This brings up more than a few questions about how the creature remains hidden, evades capture, and has dodged the errant bullets of hunters for so long. It just said it itself, for so long. It's honed its skills as far as that goes. They need to quit trying to kill the guy. It turns out Bigfoot may be smarter, stealthier, and more resourceful than we ever imagined. And he may be hiding right in our backyards. The Grassman legend, for almost 150 years, Ohio residents have witnessed a creature called the Grassman lurking about rural farms and fields. The Grassman is a monster alleged to inhabit Ohio and western Pennsylvania. It is almost certainly a Sasquatch. The first sightings occurred in 1869, where witnesses described it as a large, hairy, bipedal creature up to 9 feet tall. The beast allegedly eats wheat and other tall grasses, hence the name. But this is a food source we would expect an omnivore like Bigfoot to take advantage of if given the chance. Some researchers have a theory that the Bigfoot population in more agricultural areas of Ohio may have adapted to consuming cereal crops. This too would make sense, as planted crops would provide an easy source of food. The Grassman has been reported to share many characteristics similar to Bigfoot. But the grass-eating thing is not the only difference. For instance, the Grassman has also been spotted in groups, where most Bigfoot sightings are of a single individual. And like the skunk ape, the Grassman is reported to give off a strong odor. But I also heard that Bigfoot did also. I don't think it's just the skunk ape. But there are traditional Bigfoot reports from the state as well. Bigfoot is as abundant in Ohio as many experts believe. We have to assume it's not because of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? And the state's strong college football tradition. Nope. Bigfoot needs food, water, and shelter, as well as a certain amount of security, of course, from us meddling humans, yes. Even a creature such as large as a Sasquatch can find such things in Ohio, and the history of the region makes the state more Bigfoot friendly. I'm glad to know that. I really am. But why the Buckeye State? Why us, right? Actually, we think of Ohio as an eastern state, but really it was part of the Northwest Territory, established in the late 18th century. The population of Ohio in 1800 consisted of only 34,000 European citizens. New York alone had over 60,000 and Philadelphia over 40. Even the Native American populations of Ohio were in decline prior to this. In the 17th century, a combination of disease and war with Iroquois tribes from the east had decimated much of the indigenous population, and eventually they would begin to recover. So while the eastern part of the country was flourishing, Ohio was largely populated by Native American tribes who had fled west to avoid the invasion. Ohio was also beyond the proclamation line established in 1763 as a promise between the Native Americans and English to limit colonial expansion. This would hold off the population boom for at least a few more years. So what does all this have to do with Bigfoot? It adds up to a longer period of time before the European population began to explode, and allowed more time for Bigfoot to adapt to the presence of a large number of people in his territory. Where big animals such as the black bear and eastern cougar were under pressure from the new colonists, Bigfoot would have enjoyed a relative period of peace in Ohio territory. In later decades, the population of Ohio grew many times over. Even though the current census is over 11 million, much of the population is, of course, clustered around major cities, of course. There are still a whole lot of woods and farmland where a creature like Bigfoot might live. Absolutely there is. Absolutely. Southern Ohio is just full of hills and mountains and stuff and fields. And yeah, very true. Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are, right? Yeah. Okay. You also have the Appalachian Plateau. In the forests extending from the Appalachian Mountains into eastern Ohio. The Appalachian Mountains and the associated trail are thought by some researchers to be kind of a Bigfoot superhighway. There you go. Enabling Sasquatches to migrate up and down the East Coast in relative obscurity. On the western edge of the Appalachians are the Appalachian Plateau, which branches into PA, Kentucky, and West Virginia, and up into the eastern part of Ohio. And Bigfoot is sighted in all of these states. This southeastern area of Ohio features a large amount of wooded area within the Appalachian Plateau. Here, a great number of Bigfoot sightings have been reported through the years. So much that Animal Planet show Finding Bigfoot did an investigation in this region. Check out Animal Planet and Alaska Monsters. Absolutely wonderful for some shows on that. Salt Fork State Park in particular is known as a great place to spot Bigfoot. I've been in Salt Fork. It is the largest state park in Ohio with over 17,000 acres of land and abundant rivers, streams, and lakes. It seems like the perfect place for a Sasquatch to make its home. If you were 8 feet tall and you had land in the mountains, I think, yeah. But people are claiming, it's an animal. How do you know it's an animal? People are just assuming this, okay? The Appalachian Trail and the Appalachians in general are known for alleged Bigfoot sightings. This mountain range be a sort of connection between the eastern states, and a solid explanation for how a population of Sasquatch could survive in the east, of course. Yeah, could very well be. So check out Finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet. And it's in Salt Fork State Park, and I've been to Salt Fork. It is huge. Huge. Anyway, food sources, they eat grasses, that's fine in the summer. But of course, our climate can be tough in the winter. There's a lot to be said. Skeptics believe there simply isn't enough food throughout much of the year to sustain a population of large creatures. But Bigfoot researchers disagree, and they believe the creature is perfectly capable of hunting or fishing for food, even in the worst weather. Absolutely, they wouldn't be able to survive this long without that knowledge. I don't think. They can't just eat, vegetation. Excuse me, allergies. If Bigfoot hunts there, it's certainly enough game in Ohio. Since we know little about the beast's physiology, hard to speculate its caloric intake. But we can assume they're pretty significant if you're 10 feet tall, right? Anyway, we have a strong population of white-tailed deer, with smaller mammals such as beavers, otters, weasels, and groundhogs. All of this could be fair game for a hungry Sasquatch. Bigfoot may even be able to go long periods without food, and taking down a single deer may provide enough for several days. There's plenty of water resources nearby. The state is bordered in the south by the Ohio River and in the north by Lake Erie. Dozens of smaller rivers, of course, and tributaries run to each. Makes for great fishing and abundant food for a creature like Sasquatch. And there's always the possibility that Bigfoot has found other ways to bolster his food supply, such as catching food in the fall to make it through the rough winter. We have no proof of this, but it's as good a theory as anything else. We also have the Minerva monster, and this is near Minerva, Ohio. In 1978, a family witnessed a 7-foot hairy monster outside their home. Minerva in eastern Ohio. The family notified the local sheriff, and the legend of the Minerva monster was born. The police investigated the claims but could find no proof of the creature. But sightings by the family continued, some in broad daylight, which is kind of rare, I think. Some strange creature was stalking their property, and the police could find no evidence, maybe some questionable footprints. The family was swarmed by media for several weeks, but the sightings died off with increased exposure. There was no definitive evidence of the Minerva monster. The Minerva monster or monsters is considered by many researchers the best eyewitness accounts of Bigfoot in Ohio on record. The family and other witnesses were reliable, The involvement of the police lends the credit to the credibility. And the fact that the creatures were observed at length in the daylight makes it hard to argue a case of mistaken identity. In the end, there are only two possibilities. The witnesses engaged in an elaborate and extremely well-rehearsed hoax, which I doubt, or Bigfoot was really stalking them. With increasing numbers of reports from Ohio, PA, and West Virginia, and even the New England states, it appears there is a significant Bigfoot population in this part of the country. The Appalachians may provide a central area of security, which a relatively large population of Sasquatch could branch out into adjacent states. For a state like Ohio in particular, it appears to have the perfect combination of woodlands, water, and wildlife. It seems almost impossible to imagine Bigfoot wouldn't be present. After all, while Ohio isn't nearly as remote, these are the same qualities of the habitat in the Pacific Northwest. If you live here in Ohio, and if you spot a Bigfoot, make sure you report it on the BFRO website. That's BFRO. That's a Bigfoot research, Anyway, the more legitimate researchers like the BFR can collect data, the closer we'll all be to understanding Bigfoot. Okay. So, that's the Ohio grassman. Yes. So, what do you guys think about this? I mean, I really think there is Bigfoots out there. I don't know. They can go by any name you want, but essentially they're all the same. Yeah, they're going to defend themselves. Why wouldn't you? Wouldn't you defend yourself? So could they, but like in Australia, how did they get there? Again, the theory of the giants, and these are descendants of theirs because of their height, their weight, and strength, and etc., that they could be descendants of the giants that inhabited the earth before the Great Flood. So, think about it. The orang pendek is from Sumatra, okay? And he is like huge, massively muscled upper body, thick fur, and walks upright. Sightings of the tiny ape-man called orang pendek on the island of Sumatra have caught the attention of cryptozoologists and anthropologists. Orang pendek is Indonesia for short person, but for the inhabitants of Sumatra, it's also the name of the elusive creature, rarely spotted by outsiders. It's like a miniature Bigfoot, like we were talking about, Michelle, like you said, that about the women being taken. This could make something like this. This humanoid creature is bipedal, ape-like, and covered with thick fur. It only stands about a meter tall. It is incredibly powerful and said to have the strength to tear small trees straight out of the ground. The orang pendek is most often described as a vegetarian. Locals are worried not to get on the wrong side of the creature and give it a wide berth. It's not normally dangerous, but with its incredible power and ferocity, it would make quick work of a human. This doesn't stop the curious from seeking the beast, and cryptozoologists are taking an increased interest. May all sound like myth or the runaway tales of villagers with a healthy respect for what lurks in the shadows of the jungle. But many unknown animals could prove to be something more explainable and even more interesting. Large terrestrial animals such as the giant panda and mountain gorilla were thought to exist only in legend until researchers documented them in the not-so-distant past, okay? Given the density of the Sumatran forest, could this be a similar lost species? What is orang pendek? The truth for now is nobody really knows, of course. Like Bigfoot, orang pendek is considered a cryptid, a creature officially unknown to science, but thought by some to exist based on, of course, eyewitness testimony and rare evidence.